Leono Enterprises, executive boardroom. Later that week, tension buzzed through the air like static. The board members filed in one by one, some curious, some skeptical, all aware that something was shifting. Aldrich stood at the head of the table, calm but unreadable. Sienna sat to his right, composed, confident. Mr. Leono entered last, his presence cold and commanding. He took his seat without a word, steepling his fingers in that familiar, unsettling gesture. Aldrich cleared his throat. "Thank you for joining. I called this meeting to present the new direction for Leono Enterprises' marketing division." A pause, but also to announce a personal change. Murmurs stirred around the table. He looked around the room. "I am stepping down as CEO effective end of quarter." The silence cracked like glass. His father's voice sliced through. "Is this a joke?" No. Aldrich's tone was firm but calm. "I've spent years running this company the way I was taught, efficiently, strategically, but often without regard to the people behind the numbers. That ends now." Aldrich looked at Sienna, then back at the room. "Sienna Flores will lead the transition of the new marketing branch. Effective. Immediately, she will report directly to the board." His father narrowed his eyes. "You're giving her control." "I'm giving her authority she's earned," Aldrich replied. "Because while the rest of us have played politics, she's built vision." Sienna glanced around the table, sensing the resistance tightening. One board member leaned forward. "And what happens to the Leono legacy?" "I'm not erasing the legacy," Aldrich replied. "I'm choosing to reshape it. From something cold and impenetrable into something sustainable," Mr. Leono scoffed. "All for a woman." Aldrich turned to his father slowly. "No, for myself. Because for once, I'd like to build something that doesn't cost me my soul." This beat passed. Sienna stood, lifting the proposal. "If you turn to page 6, you'll find the projected growth under the restructure, including partnerships with tech sectors and global outreach." As murmurs of interest started again, Aldrich leaned back, not as a man relinquishing power, but as one reclaiming peace. Scene: Peter's apartment, night. Peter stood at his window, city lights swimming below like fireflies. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it. Sienna stood there, a paper bag in her hand. Thai food. For old times' sake. He stepped back, letting her in. "I thought you'd be celebrating." She smiled a little, weary, a little tender. "I was, but I wanted to thank you." "You don't have to." "I do." She set the bag down. "You reminded me I was worth standing beside, that I didn't have to shrink to be loved." Peter exhaled slowly, then sat. "So, is this goodbye?" "No," she said gently. "But it might be goodbye to a certain kind of possibility." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Then I hope the one you chose fights like hell to keep you." She didn't respond with words, just sat beside him in silence, eating noodles under the quiet ache of mutual respect. Scene: Aldrich's penthouse. Same night, the door opened and closed softly. Aldrich turned from the window as Sienna stepped inside. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "That thing you said about building something that doesn't cost you your soul?" He nodded. She moved closer. "Let's build it together. Not just a company, a life." He took her hand, reverently this time. No power, no expectation, just hope. And for the first time in years, Aldrich Leono felt like the man he might have been if someone had believed in him sooner. But someone had, and she still did. The office felt different now, lighter. Sienna stood behind the desk that had once loomed with power and isolation. It still did in some ways. But she had begun adding touches, fresh flowers, a photo of her and her mother, a small framed quote, "Power is nothing without presence." A knock at the door. She looked up. Lily peeked in. "You're needed in Conference Room B. There's something happening. Board called an emergency vote." Sienna frowned. "What kind of vote?" "They're not saying. But your name came up. And Aldrich's. Scene. Conference room." B. The atmosphere was razor sharp. Aldrich stood at one end of the room already, arms crossed. Sienna entered, head held high. Mr. Leono stood at the center, an air of triumph poorly concealed. "Thank you for joining. We'll be brief. It has come to our attention that personal decisions have compromised corporate integrity." Sienna stiffened. "We have evidence," he continued, "that the recent restructuring proposal was pushed through with limited oversight, favoring parties with personal ties to executive leadership." Aldrich's eyes narrowed. "What are you accusing her of?" "I'm not accusing," his father said silkily. "The board will decide. A vote to suspend Sienna Flores, pending independent review, is underway." Murmurs rose. Sienna stepped forward. "I followed every procedural requirement. The board reviewed and approved the restructure." "Under emotional influence," Mr. Leono cut in. "You're his wife. This is exactly why mixing sentiment with strategy is dangerous." Aldrich slammed a folder onto the table. "Enough! Here are the performance metrics. Independent audits. Projected growth has already begun, and partner retention is up by 19%. If this were about results, you'd be applauding her." Mr. Leono smiled coldly. "This isn't about results. It's about control." Sienna looked around the room, then spoke, voice steady. "Then let's vote. And let the record show I earned my place. If the board believes otherwise, I'll walk away without regret. But know this, if you let fear of change steer you, Leono Enterprises won't survive the next 5 years." A silence fell, heavy and measured. The board members exchanged glances. One by one, they voted. In favor of her suspension? 3 hands. Against? 5. 1 abstained. Decision: Sienna stays. Mr. Leono's expression froze. For the first time, his grip on the company and his son visibly slipped. Scene: rooftop terrace. That night, the rooftop was quiet again. No candles this time. Just city air and open sky. Sienna stood with a cup of tea, wrapped in Aldrich's oversized coat. He joined her, wrapping an arm loosely around her waist. "You didn't flinch," he said quietly. "I wanted to," she murmured. "But then I remembered who I used to be, and who I've become." He kissed her temple. "I'm proud of you," she smiled. "You know what I realized today? I don't need you to fight for me." Aldrich looked at her, confused for a moment. She turned, meeting his eyes. "I need you to fight with me, not because I can't stand alone, but because I don't want to anymore." He held her gaze, something breaking gently inside him. "Then that's what I'll do, for as long as you'll let me." She leaned her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. For once, there was no pretense, no contract, no mask of power between them. Just a man and a woman, choosing each other. Scene: closing montage. Peter watching from a cafe window, as Sienna passes by with Aldrich smiling. He turns back to his laptop and begins drafting something titled, "The Ones We Almost Had." Mr. Leono alone in his office, pouring himself a drink, staring at the same black and white photograph Aldrich once held. His hand shakes as he sets it back down. Lily leading a new team brainstorming session, vibrant and fierce, now head of internal innovation. Sienna in her new office, writing a note. The next chapter belongs to both of us. She places it on Aldrich's desk, Aldrich placing a key in her hand. The house in Tuscany, I never went back, but maybe we can. Final scene, Tuscany Villa. Months later, the sun spills over stone walls, olive trees dancing in the wind. Laughter carries from the kitchen. Sienna steps outside with a glass of wine, barefoot, free. Aldrich follows, brushing flour from his hands. I burned the bread, she laughs. We'll survive. He sits beside her looking out at the view. No titles, no contracts, just love. Still imperfect, still healing, but real, and finally, theirs. 5 years later, scene Florence, Italy, the Leono Flores Foundation. Gala the ballroom glowed with warm golden light. A string quartet played something soft, elegant. The banners read, Empathy and Enterprise, celebrating 5 years of change. Guests from around the world mingled beneath chandeliers. Former CEOs, government officials, community organizers, all drawn by something once unthinkable, a corporate empire reshaped by compassion. Sienna stood near the balcony, her dress a deep midnight. Blue, hair swept into a soft knot. At her side, Aldrich adjusted his cufflinks, more relaxed now, his edges softened with time, but his eyes still only sharpened when they landed on her. You know, he murmured, there was a time you hated events like this, she smirked. I still do, but the cause helps. They watched as Lily took the stage, her speech bold and humorous, the room erupting with applause, once a rebel assistant, now director of global social impact. From the far side of the room, a familiar voice called out, Still pretending you don't like the spotlight? Peter approached, impeccably dressed, a calm confidence around him. Now, his book, The Ones We Almost Had become an international bestseller, not for the drama, but the truth. Sienna had cried the night she read her chapter, not because it was painful, but because it was kind. You made me a romantic icon, she teased. Peter shrugged. You made me honest. He raised his glass. To the real ones. Aldrich and Peter exchanged a nod. No bitterness, just history and mutual respect. Scene, later that night, their villa, Tuscany. The gala was over. The car ride back quiet, sleepy. The villa stood like a dream still being written. Ivy creeping along ancient walls, lanterns flickering beneath the stars. Inside, a soft giggle echoed down the hall. Sienna padded down the corridor in slippers, pushing open a small door. Inside, a nursery, soft greens and creams, books stacked in uneven piles. And in the center, a small girl with Aldrich's eyes and Sienna's smirk sat on the rug, hugging a plush fox. Mama, she said, arms lifting. Sienna scooped her up, pressing a kiss to her temple. Couldn't sleep, baby. Aldrich appeared, in the doorway, holding a half-filled bottle. She wanted to wait up for the speech. Apparently Lily's her favorite. She has taste, Sienna said, laughing. The little girl reached for her father, who took her easily. She curled against his chest, eyes fluttering closed. They stayed like that for a long time, 3 souls in quiet orbit. Scene, the rooftop. Years later. Aletta Sienna stood on the same rooftop where everything began. In her hand, a letter, not from Aldrich, from herself. A time capsule she'd written on a particularly lonely night, when love felt too far to reach. She unfolded it, heart steady. Dear me, if you're reading this, you survived the storm. You kept your voice. You found someone who doesn't dim your fire, but stands in its warmth. You turned survival into purpose. And maybe, just maybe, you learned to love without fear. If not, that's okay too. But if you did, smile. Because damn, you earned it. She looked up. Aldrich leaned in the doorway, coffee in hand, smile lazy and sure. You coming down? Yeah, she said. Just needed to remember something. He waited. She took one last breath of that rooftop air, then walked to him. Final words, voiceover style. Love, they say, is a battlefield, but sometimes it's a rooftop. A resignation letter, a chocolate souffle and grilled salmon, a silence finally broken. It isn't always grand. Sometimes it's a quiet promise, an open hand, and the choice, again and again, to stay. Aldrich sat in the library, the fire burning low. The shelves were lined with stories he never had time to read before. Now he read one every week with his daughter, and sometimes out loud to Sienna on quiet nights. Tonight, though, he wasn't reading, he was holding a letter. It was yellowed slightly, the seal broken but the words inside untouched. His father's handwriting, sharp, controlled. Written just 2 weeks before the old man passed away unexpectedly. He had found it recently tucked inside a drawer his father once kept locked. To my son, it began. You may never forgive me, and maybe you shouldn't. I raised you to survive me, not to outgrow me. That was my mistake. If you're reading this, I hope you found something I never did, someone who sees you beyond what I made you become. If she challenges you, if she stares you down when you're wrong and still stands with you when you're right, marry her again, this time with no contracts. Legacy means nothing if you're the last to carry it. Rewrite ours. If not for me, then for yourself. Aldrich folded the letter slowly. He didn't feel peace exactly, but he felt the weight shift. His father would never be a hero. But maybe this was the closest he'd ever come to an apology. Scene, Sienna's studio, afternoon light and old dreams. Sunlight poured through the large windows. Canvases leaned against the walls, some abstract, some painfully intimate. Her art, once buried under board meetings and expectations, now breathed again. A small plaque by the door read, "The Whole You." Private studio of Sienna Leono Flores today, she was painting. Not for an exhibit, not for a foundation, just for herself. A small portrait. Unfinished, but already speaking. A young girl on a rooftop staring at the stars. A man holding out his hand behind her. Not pulling, just waiting. "Mommy!" She turned. Their daughter stood at the doorway, a smear of chocolate on her cheek. "Can I paint with you?" Sienna smiled. "Always." She pulled up a tiny stool, a new canvas, a clean brush. Together they began something new. Final scene. A vow renewed, quiet, simple, true. It wasn't a grand event. No guests, just the two of them in the garden behind their villa, barefoot on dew-kissed grass, vows spoken under an olive, trees strung with fairy lights. Their daughter played with petals nearby, humming a song she'd made up herself. "I don't want perfect," Sienna said, eyes brimming. "I don't have perfect to give," Aldrich replied. "Just promise me this." "Time," she whispered. "We walked through the hard parts together." He nodded. No more walls, no more armor. They sealed it not with rings, but with laughter, with a kiss that felt like exhale, like home. Closing narration, like the final words of a film. They didn't start with love. They started with a contract, conditions, cold intentions, and yet they wrote something rare, a story of survival, softness, and the kind of love born not from perfection, but from choosing each other again and again, even when it hurt. And somewhere in that ordinary magic, they found everything they never thought they deserved. 5 years later, a beachside afternoon, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long golden streaks across the ocean. The Leono Flores family had taken a rare holiday. No business calls, no press, no looming board meetings, just sand, sea, and time. Aldrich sat beneath a wide umbrella, a book in his lap, but his eyes weren't on the pages. They were on Sienna. She was chasing their daughter across the shoreline, laughter echoing into the wind. Her dress was soaked at the hem, hair wild with salt, and her joy, raw, loud, uninhibited, was a melody he could never grow tired of. She hadn't just returned to herself. She had become more, stronger, softer, realer. "Dad!" The little girl came sprinting back, hands full of shells. "Look what we found." "We?" Aldrich asked, smiling. "Me and Mommy. We're going to make a fairy castle." He bent forward, brushing a few wet strands from her forehead. "Then build it strong. Fairies deserve safe homes too." Sienna joined them a moment later, breathless and radiant. She dropped to the sand beside them, fingers intertwining with his. "You're staring again," she teased. "Can you blame me?" he said quietly. "No," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I really can't." Scene: New Year's Eve, back in the city. The rooftop looked different now. There were more plants, a swing chair their daughter insisted on, and a mosaic-tiled table Sienna had designed herself. It wasn't the place of confrontation anymore. It had become a sanctuary. Midnight was approaching. The city buzzed below, fireworks beginning to stutter across the skyline. Sienna stood beside Aldrich, wrapped in a knit shawl, mug of mulled cider in her hands. "Did you ever think we'd make it here?" she asked, watching the lights. "No," he said honestly. "But I think that's what makes it real." She turned to look at him, their daughter asleep inside, the quiet of love pulsing between them. "I'm glad we didn't give up." "So am I," he said. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, worn, old, her ring, the first one, the one from the contract. She stared, surprised. "I kept it," he said, "not for the deal it symbolized, but because it was where we began. And sometimes beginnings matter." She took it slowly, then reached for his hand. "We can keep the beginning," she whispered, "but I'm still choosing our middle." "And our end," she smiled. "Let's not write that part yet." They kissed as the sky exploded in celebration. Not for promises, not for perfection, but for the simple, extraordinary fact that they'd made it here. Two broken souls who dared to rebuild something whole, together. Sienna sat alone at a small table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug. The morning light filtered softly through the window, casting a gentle glow on her thoughtful face. She wasn't just reflecting on the past anymore. She was thinking about the future. The bell above the door jingled and Peter stepped inside, his usual confident smile softened by something deeper. He spotted her and made his way over. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She nodded, gesturing to the seat across. Peter sat, folding his hands. "I wanted to check in," he said carefully. "After everything with Aldrich. How are you really?" Sienna smiled faintly, eyes clear. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but hopeful. For the first time, I think I'm ready to believe in something real." Peter nodded, relief washing over his face. "I'm glad. You deserve that. And whatever happens, I'll always stand next to you." She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Thank you, Peter, for everything." They shared a quiet moment, the weight of unspoken history settling between them. Not as a burden, but as a foundation for a different kind of friendship. Scene: Aldrich's office. Later that day, Aldrich sat behind his desk, the resignation letter, now framed quietly on the shelf behind him. His phone buzzed, a message from Sienna. "Ready to meet. Let's keep building." He smiled, feeling the shift inside him. The first real step toward redemption and a life rewritten on their terms. He typed back, "Always." Final shot: the skyline at dusk. The city shimmered with promise. Two figures stood together on the rooftop terrace, hands linked, shadows mingling with the fading light. Not perfect, not without scars, but together. Aldrich stepped into the vast, imposing office, the air sick with expectation. His father sat behind a massive mahogany desk, the same cold expression etched onto his face. "You summoned me," Aldrich said steadily, closing the door behind him. Mr. Leono steepled his fingers, eyes sharp. "I want to know where your loyalties lie. With me, with this company, or with her?" Aldrich met his father's gaze unflinchingly. "With what I believe is right, and with someone who's made me a better man." His father's lips twitched in a barely restrained smirk. "Romance won't save you from the cutthroat world, Aldrich. You're playing with fire." Aldrich's voice hardened. "I'm not the boy you raised to be cold and ruthless. I'm choosing a different legacy, one built on respect, trust, and partnership." A beat passed. His father's eyes narrowed. Then, "Prove it." Scene. Marketing department next morning. Sienna stood before her team, confidently outlining the new marketing strategy she and Aldrich had crafted. "Together, we're not just restructuring. We're redefining what this company stands for," she said, eyes bright with conviction. Her team responded with nods, energized by her passion. Later, Peter approached, handing her a coffee. "You're unstoppable," he said softly. She smiled. "I'm just finally fighting for what I deserve." Scene. Rooftop terrace. Twilight. Aldrich joined Sienna, the city lights flickering below. He reached out, taking her hand gently. "Whatever comes next, we face it as equals." She squeezed his hand. "No more contracts, just us." They stood close, the silence filled with unspoken promises and a shared hope for a future neither dared dream of before. The room buzzed with tension. The board of directors sat around the long table, eyes flicking between Aldrich and his father. Mr. Leono cleared his throat, voice icy. "Aldrich, your recent decisions threaten the company's stability. This partnership with Mrs. Leono, it's a distraction." Aldrich stood, calm but resolute. "Sir, this isn't a distraction. It's the future. Sienna has brought fresh ideas, new energy. Together we're building something stronger." A murmur rippled through the room. His father's gaze sharpened. "Do you think weakness will win in business? Emotion, compassion? These are luxuries we can't afford." Aldrich's voice grew firmer. "No, it's strength. True strength lies in trust and respect. I refuse to inherit a legacy built on fear and control." The boardroom fell silent. Mr. Leono's face darkened, but he said nothing. Aldrich's stance was clear. He wasn't backing down. Scene. Sienna's apartment. Evening. Sienna unpacked her laptop from a work bag when her phone buzzed. A message from Aldrich. "Meeting went better than expected. Waiting for you." Her chest warmed, but doubts lingered. She stared out the window, the city lights twinkling like fragile hopes. Peter's voice echoed softly in her mind. "If he breaks you again, I won't forgive him." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Not this time." Scene. Aldrich's penthouse. Moments later, Sienna stepped inside to find Aldrich waiting, a tired but genuine smile on his face. He pulled her close without hesitation. "We're not perfect. We'll stumble, maybe even fall, but I want to walk forward with you." She smiled through the tears threatening to spill. "Me too." Aldrich sat alone, the city lights casting long shadows. The phone buzzed, an incoming call from his father. He hesitated, then answered. "Leono." His father's voice was cold but measured. "I've been watching you. You're playing a dangerous game, mixing business with emotion. It's a recipe for disaster." Aldrich's jaw tightened. "I'm done playing your game, father. This company will thrive because it adapts, not because it's chained to outdated fears." A silence stretched. Remember this, Aldrich. The stronger you try to be, the more vulnerable you expose yourself. Don't. Let sentiment be your downfall. Aldrich hung up, heart pounding, but a fierce resolve burning in his eyes. Scene. Sienna's apartment. Next morning. Sienna sipped coffee, the conversation with Peter replaying in her mind. Her phone lit up with a message from Aldrich. Breakfast. At the penthouse. Need to discuss the next phase. She smiled, steadied herself, and typed back. On my way. Scene. Aldrich's penthouse. Breakfast. They sat across from each other, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Aldrich slid a folder across the table. We have a chance to restructure the company culture. Less hierarchy, more collaboration. I want you to lead the initiative. Sienna looked up, surprised and honored. This is more than marketing. It's changing how we work. He nodded. Exactly. But I can't do this alone. She reached out, their fingers brushing. Briefly. We'll do it together. Scene. Hallway outside the boardroom, Aldrich's father intercepted them, a smirk playing on his lips. So, the prodigal son has found a partner. Do you really think this will save you? Aldrich met his gaze, steady and unwavering. More than your threats ever did. Sienna stood beside him, no longer just a temporary ace but his equal. And more than your fear ever will. The elder Leono's eyes narrowed. The game far from over, but the tide was shifting. Sienna stood before a room full of skeptical senior managers, a large screen behind her displaying the new company culture initiative she and Aldrich had been drafting. Her voice was steady, but inside, she felt every pair of eyes weighing her. We are proposing a shift from rigid hierarchy to a collaborative environment where transparency and employee well-being drive innovation, she said. This isn't just a marketing strategy. It's a cultural revolution, and it starts with us. A hand shot up. Mr. Ramirez, a longtime manager. This sounds idealistic, but how do you plan to implement it without disrupting ongoing projects? Our results matter. Sienna met his challenge calmly. We'll implement pilot teams first, gather real-time feedback, and adjust before a full rollout. Change is gradual but necessary. The room murmured, some nodding, others still. Doubtful. She caught the eye of one younger manager who gave a subtle, approving smile. Scene. Aldrich's father's office. Same time. Mr. Leono sat in his leather chair, speaking on the phone. Yes, the marketing initiative is stirring unrest. Aldrich is putting her forward. A calculated move, but risky. He leaned back, fingers steepled. If they fail, it will weaken Aldrich's standing. If they succeed, we'll have to reconsider our position. Scene. Aldrich's office. Late afternoon. Aldrich paced, frustration simmering. His phone buzzed. A message from Sienna. Pilot team feedback is promising. Need your support at the next board meeting. He exhaled, then replied, I've got your back. Scene. Boardroom next day. The board meeting was tense. Aldrich and Sienna presented. Together, their unified front, a stark contrast to the usual power struggles. Sienna spoke passionately about the pilot program results, while Aldrich reinforced the vision of a modern, resilient company. Mr. Leono watched carefully, eyes sharp. When the floor opened for questions, Mr. Ramirez spoke first. This is uncharted territory, but your results speak louder than words. I'm cautiously optimistic. The mood shifted. Others began voicing support. Scene. Rooftop terrace. After the meeting, Sienna and Aldrich stood side by side, city lights twinkling below. Your father's watching, Sienna said quietly. He is, but so am I, and I'm ready to fight for this, and for us. She smiled, hope shining bright. Together, Aldrich stood before his father's imposing desk, the weight of years pressing between them like a tangible force. "You think this little marketing stunt changes the rules?" Mr. Leono's voice was cold, sharp. "It's not about culture, Aldrich. It's about control, power. You don't get to rewrite the legacy." Aldrich met his father's gaze, steady but fierce. "This isn't about control. It's about survival and evolution. You taught me to be ruthless, to bury anything, soft inside me. But that's not strength, not anymore," Mr. Leono scoffed. "Softness is weakness. You were raised to be a leader, not a fool chasing dreams." Aldrich's jaw tightened. "Maybe I was raised by a man who never loved me, but I choose to be different. I choose to lead with respect, not fear." The silence stretched, heavy and charged. "You're risking everything," his father warned. "Including her." Aldrich's voice dropped. "I'm risking everything to keep her. Seen. Sienna's apartment." Night Sienna sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, campaign reports spread around her. Her phone buzzed, a message from Peter. "Dinner tomorrow? Need to catch up." She hesitated, then typed back, "Sure, need a friend." As she closed her laptop, doubt flickered in her eyes. "Can I really balance this? The company, Aldrich, my own life." Her reflection in the window caught her. Strong, determined, but tired. Seen, Aldrich's office. Late night, Aldrich sat alone, the city lights casting long shadows. He pulled out the worn photo of his father and himself as a boy. Fingers tracing the faded edges, he whispered, "I'm not that child anymore." His phone buzzed. A message from Sienna. "We're stronger than the legacy, together." He smiled, hope lighting the darkness. The air was thick with tension as Aldrich entered the room, accompanied by Sienna and Floresiana. The board members exchanged glances, whispers rippling like a current beneath polished surfaces. Mr. Leono took his seat, eyes sharp as ever. "So, Aldrich, you're pushing this new direction? Care to explain why I should risk the company's legacy on your idealism?" Aldrich stood tall, voice calm but firm. "Because the world is changing. Our legacy will survive only if we evolve, if we lead with integrity, not intimidation." Sienna stepped forward, meeting each skeptical gaze with unwavering confidence. "This marketing restructure is built on authenticity and respect, qualities our clients want. It's not just strategy, it's a statement." Floresiana nodded, adding, "We've run projections. Engagement will increase by at least 25% within 6 months." Mr. Leono's eyes flickered with something unreadable, grudging respect or cautious calculation. "We'll see," he said coldly. "But remember, legacies are not so easily rewritten." Seen, Sienna's apartment. Evening Peter sat across from Sienna, his usual light-heartedness dimmed. "You're doing amazing, Sia, but don't lose yourself in this fight. Remember who you are beneath all the pressure." Sienna sighed, her guard lowering. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm just fighting shadows, his father's legacy, my own doubts." Peter reached across the table, a steady presence. "You're not alone, and you don't have to be perfect, just real." She gave a small smile. Grateful. "Thank you, Peter. I don't say it enough." He shrugged with a grin. "That's what friends are for." Seen, Aldrich's office. Late night alone. Once more, Aldrich stared at the ceiling. The battle with his father had just begun, but something inside him had shifted. He whispered, "I won't let the past decide my future." His phone buzzed again. Another message from Sienna. "One day at a time." He smiled, hope fragile but fierce. Aldrich stood facing his father, the grand room silent except for the faint ticking of an antique clock. His father's eyes bore into him, unyielding. You think you can just walk away from everything I built? From what I made you? Aldrich's voice was steady, but fire burned beneath. No. But I can choose what I become from it. Mr. Leono's lip curled. You're weak, chasing after some fantasy of love and equality with that woman. She's a pawn, Aldrich, a distraction. Aldrich's jaw tightened. Maybe she's the only thing that's ever made me feel alive. His father's expression darkened. Then you're more lost than I thought. Aldrich took a slow breath, holding his ground. I'm done being the son you want. I'm becoming the man I choose to be. Scene: Sienna's apartment, late evening. Sienna sat curled on the couch, the weight of the day settling in. Her phone buzzed. A message from Peter. Want to grab a late coffee? Talk? She hesitated, then smiled softly. She needed this. At the cafe, Peter listened as she spoke quietly, the walls she kept so high gently crumbling. I'm scared, Peter. Scared of trusting Aldrich again. Of opening my heart and getting hurt. Peter reached across the table, hand brushing hers. Then don't promise anything, just take your time. I'm here for you. No pressure, no expectations. Sienna looked at him, gratitude shining through her fear. Thank you for standing by me, even when it's hard. Peter smiled, warm and steady. Always. Scene: Aldrich's office, the next morning. Aldrich arrived to find a folder on his desk. The results of the marketing restructures, first week. The numbers were promising, better than expected. His phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. We're making progress. Together. He looked out the window, city alive beneath him, and for the first time in years, hope felt real. The city lights shimmered below like a sea of stars, the night air cool and still around them. Aldrich and Sienna stood side by side, neither speaking, at first. Finally, Aldrich broke the silence. I wasn't always good at this, talking about feelings, or admitting when I'm scared. Sienna glanced at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. I've seen the walls you build, but not often the man behind them. He swallowed, voice rough. There's a part of me that's been frozen since I was a boy. Scared, lonely, desperate for something real. For love. She turned to face him, heart pounding. And what about now? He reached out, hesitating just a second before gently brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Now I want to thaw, to be someone who doesn't run from feeling her. Breath caught, emotions raw and unguarded. Maybe we can learn to do that, together. A soft breeze stirred between them as the silence deepened. But this time, it felt like peace, not distance. Scene: Leono Enterprises, boardroom. Morning. Aldrich's father sat at the head of the table, eyes sharp as knives. Around him, the board members exchanged uneasy glances. You're choosing love over legacy, Aldrich, his father said coldly. You'll lose everything. Aldrich stood tall, the weight of his father's expectations heavy, but no longer crushing. If that's what it takes to be true to myself, then yes, I'll risk it all. A murmur ran through the room. Some shocked, some intrigued. His father's gaze was ice. You'll regret this. Aldrich's smile was steady. Maybe, but I won't regret choosing who I want to be. Scene: Sienna's apartment. Night. Peter and Sienna sat close on the couch, sharing a quiet moment. I see you, Sienna, Peter said softly. Not just the strong, driven woman, but the one who's afraid to fall, and the one brave enough to try. She smiled, a tear escaping down her cheek. Thank you for never giving up on me. He brushed it away gently. Never. Scene: Leono Enterprises, private office. Afternoon. Aldrich sat across from his father, the air thick with unspoken history. His father's eyes burned with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "You think love will save you? It's a luxury for fools," his father sneered. "Business doesn't care about your feelings." Aldrich met his gaze steadily. "Maybe it's time business learns about heart." His father's lips curled in a bitter smile. "You're weak, and weak people don't last long in this world." Aldrich's voice was calm but firm. "Maybe, but I'd rather fall standing than live on my knees." There was a long pause. Then his father leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Fine, prove me wrong. Show me this change. But don't come crying when it breaks you." Scene: Sienna's apartment. Evening, Sienna sat on the couch, phone in hand. A message from Aldrich blinked on the screen. "Can we talk? I need to be honest." Her heart raced as she typed back, "I'm here." Minutes later, the doorbell rang. Aldrich stood there, vulnerability etched across his face. He stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. "I'm scared, Sienna. Scared of failing you again. But more than that, scared of losing what we might have." She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "We're both scared, but maybe that's how we know it's real." Scene: Marketing department. Next day, Peter watched Sienna from across the room, the worry never far from his eyes. She was fighting a battle he couldn't join, but he'd stand by her no matter what. As Sienna walked past him, he called softly, "Whatever happens, you're not alone." She smiled, a bittersweet glow. "Thank you, Peter. That means more than you know." The city lights spilled through the windows, casting long shadows. Aldrich and Sienna sat close, but not touching, the silence between them heavy with everything unsaid. He finally broke it. "I wasn't ready before. I thought I had to be everything. Strong, ruthless, perfect. But with you, I don't want to be perfect. I want to be real." Sienna looked up, eyes shimmering. "Real is scary, but it's the only thing that ever felt true." He reached slowly and took her hand in his. "Then let's be scared together." Scene: Leono Enterprises boardroom. Morning, Aldrich stood at the head of the table, his father seated across, his expression unreadable. "This company needs more than profit margins," Aldrich said. "It needs integrity, respect, people like Sienna remind me what we're really fighting for." His father's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You're treading dangerous waters, son, but maybe you're starting to understand." Scene: Marketing department. Afternoon, Sienna closed her laptop, heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Peter approached, eyes warm. "So? How did it go?" She smiled softly. "Better than I dared hope." Peter nodded, a proud gleam in his eyes. "Good. Because whatever happens next, you deserve someone who fights for you." The soft clink of glasses echoed as Aldrich poured 2 glasses of wine. Sienna watched quietly from the couch, the weight of the day settling into her shoulders. He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing for a fleeting second. Neither pulled away. "I talked to my father today," Aldrich said, voice low. "It wasn't easy, but it felt like a first step." Sienna nodded slowly. "He's not easy to break through." "Neither am I," Aldrich admitted. "But I want to try, not just for the company or the family, but for us." Her eyes searched his. "Us." "Yes," he said with a soft smile. "Not contract, not arrangement. Us, with no walls." Sienna exhaled, the tension in her chest easing. "It sounds like hope." "Hope," Aldrich echoed, raising his glass. "To hope, then." She clinked her glass against his. "To hope, Essene." Morning, marketing department. Sienna sat at her desk, a rare lightness in her step. Peter approached with a folder. "Board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. You ready to take the lead?" She smiled, determination flickering in her eyes. "I'm ready," Peter grinned. "Good. because I'm not letting you face this alone. Scene: boardroom. Next day, Aldrich stood beside Sienna as she confidently presented their marketing proposal. The room was quiet, but attentive. His father's eyes softened when he saw the strength in Sienna's voice, a strength that had once been hidden, beneath uncertainty. As the meeting ended, Aldrich caught Sienna's gaze. A silent promise passed between them. They were no longer alone. The last of the executives filed out, murmurs fading into silence. Sienna gathered her notes calmly, but Aldrich stayed seated, watching her with quiet admiration. His father remained. At the head of the table, fingers steepled, eyes sharp yet thoughtful. "Mrs. Leono," he finally spoke, voice steady. "I must admit your proposal was more than competent. It shows a clear vision, one that I had underestimated." Sienna met his gaze evenly. "Thank you, sir. This isn't just a strategy for sales. It's a strategy for the company's future, for all of us." Mr. Leono's lips pressed into a thin line. "And what of your partnership with Aldrich? Are you truly aligned in this vision?" Aldrich stood, stepping beside Sienna. "We are. More than just business partners. We're committed to rebuilding both the company and our personal trust." Brief silence. Then the elder Leono nodded once. "Very well. I expect to see results and honesty, not the power plays that have plagued this company in the past." Sienna's eyes flicked to Aldrich, and a small smile played at her lips. "You have my word." Scene: rooftop terrace. Later that night, Aldrich and Sienna leaned against the railing, city lights twinkling beneath them. The breeze tugged gently at her hair. "You were impressive today," Aldrich said softly. "Thanks to you," she replied, turning to face him. He reached out, fingers brushing her cheek. "I mean it. You've changed everything. For the better." She swallowed hard. "I'm scared, Aldrich. Scared that this is fragile." He shook his head gently. "It's not fragile if we protect it. Together." Their eyes locked. No words were needed. In the quiet, hope burned steady between them. Scene: Aldrich's office, the next morning. The morning sun filtered softly through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Aldrich sat behind his desk, the weight of last night's conversation lingering in his expression. His phone buzzed, a message from Sienna. "Meeting went well. Thanks for believing." He allowed himself a small smile, then stood, straightening his suit jacket. Today, he decided, would be different. Just then, his assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Leono, your father is waiting to see you in his office." Aldrich nodded, steeling himself. "Thank you. I'll be there shortly." Scene: Mr. Leono's office. The elder Leono sat behind an imposing desk, eyes sharp as ever. Aldrich entered, closing the door behind him. "I've been thinking about what you and Sienna presented," Mr. Leono said without preamble. "Change is never easy, but maybe it's time I rethink what legacy means." Aldrich's brow lifted. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to lead this company, not just as my successor, but as the man you want to be, not the one I tried to mold." Aldrich's heart skipped a beat. "I won't let you down." Mr. Leono nodded slowly. "I'm not just trusting you with the company. I'm trusting you with our family name." Scene: marketing department. Later that day, Sienna found Peter at his desk. She approached quietly. "Peter," she said, voice soft but sure, "thank you for always standing by me." Peter looked up, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I'll always be here, Sia, no matter what." She paused, then added, "I think I'm ready to believe in us, all of us." Scene: rooftop terrace. Evening, Aldrich and Sienna met again under the same flickering lights. No contracts, no negotiations, Just two people daring to try. He took her hand, and this time she didn't hesitate. Hope had found them both, fragile but fierce. The city lights stretched endlessly beneath them, a quiet hum of life far below. Aldrich held Sienna's hand gently, their fingers interlaced like fragile promises. "I don't know what the future holds," Aldrich said softly, voice raw with honesty. "But I want to walk it with you. No contracts, no facades." Sienna looked up at him, eyes glistening. "I want that too. But I need to know you're here because you choose me every day." He brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "I am. I promise you that." For a long moment neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of possibilities. Scene: Aldrich's penthouse. Later inside, the warmth of the apartment wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the cold city outside. Sienna settled onto the couch, and Aldrich moved to pour 2 glasses of wine. As he handed her one, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from his father. "Meeting at 9 a.m. Be ready." Aldrich's smile faltered for just a second before returning. "I have to deal with my father tomorrow," he said. "But tonight is ours." Sienna nodded, letting herself believe. Just for a little while. Scene: Leono Enterprises. Boardroom. The next morning, Aldrich entered the room confidently, flanked by Sienna and a few key allies. His father sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable. "Gentlemen," Aldrich began, "it's time we move forward. Together." The room fell silent, tension thick. Mr. Leono's eyes flicked to Sienna, then back to Aldrich. "Show me you've changed, son." Aldrich met his gaze, unwavering. "I intend to." The room was tense, the air thick with unspoken challenges. Aldrich's father studied the documents spread before him, the new marketing restructure proposal that Sienna and Aldrich had crafted together. "You've certainly made your point," Mr. Leono said finally, voice calm but edged with steel. "But change isn't just about strategy. It's about loyalty, resilience, legacy." Aldrich glanced at Sienna, who met his eyes steadily. "Then let me prove our loyalty to this company. Not through blind obedience, but by showing strength through partnership." Mr. Leono leaned forward, fingers steepled. "You say partnership. You mean with her?" Aldrich nodded. "With Sienna. She's proven she's more than just a temporary fixture. She's a leader, and I'm done with facades." Sienna's presence radiated quiet confidence. "I'm here to build, not just to fill a role. I respect the legacy, but I also believe it's time to evolve." Mr. Leono's gaze sharpened. Then he sighed. "Very well. I'll give you 6 months to show me this isn't a passing phase." Aldrich's smile was tight but genuine. "That's all I ask." Scene: Marketing Department. Later, Peter watched from the doorway as Sienna returned to her desk, a mixture of relief and admiration in his eyes. He caught her gaze and gave a small nod. "You did good," he said quietly. Sienna smiled softly, exhaustion and hope mingling in her expression. "Thanks, Peter, for everything." He shrugged, trying to keep his usual easygoing tone, but the warmth in his eyes betrayed him. "Just don't forget, no matter what happens, you've got people in your corner." She nodded, clutching her coffee cup tightly. "I won't." Scene: Aldrich's penthouse. Night Aldrich stood by the window, city lights shimmering below. Sienna approached quietly, leaning against his shoulder. "We took a big step today," she whispered. He turned, brushing a kiss to her temple. "One step at a time, and this time we're walking it together." The jazz record played softly in the background as they stood in silence, 2 hearts cautiously hopeful. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows, casting long beams over the sleek modern furniture. Aldrich sat behind his desk, deep in thought. The events from the previous day weighed on him, but so did the fragile new hope blossoming between him and Sienna. The door opened softly, and Peter stepped in, hands in his pockets but eyes sharp. "Morning," Peter said, nodding in greeting. Aldrich looked up, surprised but glad to see him. "Peter, come in." Peter moved to a chair near the window. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," Aldrich gave a humorless smile. "Maybe a little, but it's worth it." Peter studied him for a moment. "You ready for the board meeting today? Your father's not exactly known for easy conversations." Aldrich's jaw tightened. "I'm ready to stand my ground, for Sienna, for us." Peter nodded approvingly. "Good. You need that strength. But remember, sometimes strength is knowing when to bend without breaking." Aldrich chuckled softly. "Sounds like something you'd say." Peter smirked. "I'm full of wisdom, aren't I?" The two shared a brief moment of camaraderie, the tension easing just enough. Scene: board meeting room. The boardroom was colder than the office, the long table shining beneath the harsh overhead lights. Mr. Leono sat at the head, flanked by several stern-faced executives. Aldrich and Sienna entered together, standing side by side as the murmurs quieted. "Let's begin," Mr. Leono said. The meeting was rigorous. Questions were sharp, doubts voiced clearly, but Aldrich and Sienna answered with calm assurance, the synergy between them evident. When the meeting finally ended, Mr. Leono gave a rare nod of approval. "Your proposal stands. But remember, success will be measured by results, not promises." Aldrich met his father's gaze steadily. "Understood." Sienna squeezed Aldrich's hand subtly, a silent reminder. Together. The door clicked softly behind Sienna as she entered. Aldrich was already seated reviewing reports, but his attention snapped to her the moment she appeared. "You handled yourself well today," he said, voice low but genuine. She offered a small, tired smile. "We handled it. Together." He stood, closing the gap between them. "I want you to know I see you, not just as my partner in business, but as my equal in every way." Her breath caught, emotions swirling beneath the surface. "It's a new feeling, being seen." He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm learning. Slowly, but I'm trying." Sienna's eyes searched his face, finding something raw and hopeful there. "And I want to try too, but this time, no contracts, no walls." Aldrich nodded. "No walls." Scene: rooftop terrace, evening. The city lights glittered like stars below them. Sienna leaned against the railing, the breeze teasing her hair. Aldrich joined her, a quiet presence beside her. "I thought I knew what strength meant," he said, voice thoughtful. "But it took you to show me it's more than control or power." She turned to him, eyes reflecting the city's glow. "It's about vulnerability, too." He smiled, a little shy. "Maybe I'm learning how to be vulnerable." She reached out, taking his hand. "Then let's learn together." The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of promise. Sienna sat at her desk, the sunlight streaming through the large windows, warming the space. Her phone buzzed. A message from Aldrich. "Coffee before the meeting? Need to talk?" She hesitated a moment, then smiled and typed back, "See you in 10. Peter approached quietly, sensing something different in her energy. "Big day?" he asked gently. Sienna nodded. "I think it's the start of something real." Peter smiled, but his eyes held a shadow of concern. "Just remember, I'm here, whatever you decide." She gave him a grateful look. "Thank you, Peter. That means more than you know." Scene: Aldrich's office. Moments later, Aldrich stood by the window when Sienna arrived. He gestured toward 2 cups of coffee on the table. "Thanks for coming," he said. She took a seat, looking at him closely. "What did you want to talk about?" he sighed. "I've been thinking about everything. Us, the company, my father. I want to change how I lead, not just at work, but in life." Sienna's eyes softened. "That's a big step," he nodded. "I want to be a man worthy of you. No more walls." She reached across the table, fingers brushing his. "Then let's take it one day at a time." Scene. Later that week. Boardroom. The tension was thick as Aldrich's father sat opposite them. Sienna stood her ground, calm and confident. "I'm not here as a bargaining chip," she said firmly. "I'm here because Aldrich and I believe in this company, and in each other." Mr. Leono's eyes narrowed, but there was a grudging respect. "There now." "Very well," he said, voice clipped. "I'll give you 6 months to prove it." Aldrich exchanged a glance with Sienna. No words were needed. The city lights flickered like distant stars as Aldrich and Sienna stood together by the floor-to-ceiling windows. The air between them was quieter now, less guarded. Sienna broke the silence. "It's strange, isn't it? How much easier it feels just standing here, with no masks." Aldrich nodded. "I used to think strength was about control, about never showing weakness." She smiled softly. "Maybe strength is about trusting someone enough to be vulnerable." He turned toward her, eyes searching. "I want to trust you, Sienna, more than anything." Her breath caught, but she kept steady. "Then let's keep building that. No rushing, no pretending." He reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "One day at a time." She leaned into the touch, feeling a fragile hope. Growing scene. The next day. Marketing meeting. Sienna presented their new marketing strategy with confidence. The board listened intently, impressed by the fresh ideas and her clarity. When she finished, Aldrich caught her eye and gave a small nod of approval. Later, as the room emptied, Peter approached her quietly. "You're really making waves," he said, a hint of a smile breaking through. Sienna laughed softly. "Feels good to be seen." Peter's expression grew serious. "Just promise me you won't lose yourself." She looked at him, grateful. "I won't. Thanks for always standing beside me." Scene. Late night. Aldrich's office. Aldrich sat alone, the day's exhaustion weighing on him. He opened the worn photograph again, tracing the faces with his finger. A soft knock startled him. Sienna entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might need this," she said, sitting beside him. He smiled, the warmth genuine this time. "Thank you." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Whatever happens, we're in this together." Closed his eyes, letting the quiet comfort settle around them. The soft glow of dawn spilled through the curtains as Aldrich awoke to the sound of his phone buzzing on the nightstand. He reached for it, seeing a message from Sienna. "Meet me at the park. I need some fresh air and a break from everything." He smiled and texted back. "I'll be there in 10. Scene. City Park. Moments later. The park was quiet, morning mist still hanging over the grass. Sienna sat on a bench, wrapped in a light scarf, watching the world slowly wake. Aldrich approached, hands in his pockets. The usual tension softened. He sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. She sighed, looking up at the soft sky. "It's strange, isn't it? How life can feel like a whirlwind, and yet here, it feels peaceful." He nodded. "Peace is something I didn't know I wanted until you showed me it could exist." Her smile was gentle but uncertain. "Do you think we can really build something? Beyond all the contracts, the expectations?" He reached out and took her hand, steadying her fears. "I don't know what the future holds, but I want to find out, with you." Sienna's eyes shimmered, hope mixing with vulnerability. "One step at a time," He squeezed her hand, one step at a time. Scene. Later, Leono Enterprises lobby Floresiana walked through the sleek lobby, determination radiating off her. She spotted Peter near the elevator. "Peter," she called, a small smile breaking through her usually serious demeanor. He turned, surprised but pleased. "Floresiana, how are things?" "Better," she said. "Sienna's really holding her own. It's inspiring," Peter nodded, eyes thoughtful. "Yeah, she's stronger than she lets on." They shared a brief moment of understanding before the elevator dinged. Scene. Aldrich's office. Afternoon. Aldrich reviewed the latest quarterly. Reports, but his mind was elsewhere, on the fragile peace he was building with Sienna. A knock at the door. Lily entered holding a small folder. "I thought you'd want to see this," she said, placing it on his desk. He opened it, scanning the contents. A detailed plan for a new company initiative, spearheaded by Sienna. "She's not just playing a role anymore, is she?" Lily asked softly. "No," Aldrich said quietly. "She's changing everything.